Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City, longtime Eagle beat writer, going to give us his perspective on this season. And I'm interested, Dave, to get kind of your feedback and take on the anticipation from your readers and just the kind of feeling you're getting. Are you feeling like a team that is coming off a Super Bowl, or is it a little lax than normal? What's happening with the readership?
I think they're, in general, they're pretty excited about it. Like you said, coming off the Super Bowl, they're still kind of living in last year a little bit still, I think. But also I think there's probably just like a tad bit of a letdown because last year was so exciting that it's going to be hard to top. But I think like once the season gets rolling a little bit, I think that the readers and the public will be, and the fans will be really, they'll start to really get amped up about it, I think.
All right, I want to get your take on, most times positive stuff doesn't sell as much. There's not a lot of sizzle behind the positive stories. So if you're looking at this team, I think the team is deeper. I think they're better on paper, but I do have some concerns in terms of them having so many guys not practicing. Do they just gel and step on that field tomorrow night and look like the team that brought us on such a journey last year? What are some of the concerns you have both tomorrow and entering the season?
Kind of the same ones that you have. I guess I have to take Doug at his word when he insists that, practices are almost harder than games. I mean, I have a hard time understanding that, but I get the point of resting some of the key guys like the Jason Peterson and Darren Sproles. You really don't need to see much. You don't need to see, much of them, but I do kind of wonder how the chemistry is going to go, how the cohesiveness with the offense is going to go when they haven't really played together in the preseason. I just kind of hope that, Peterson's accurate when he says, they've been working really well together in practice, but it remains to be seen.
Yeah, I know that, Alshon is not going to play, and he has not done much. You've got Nelson has been banged up. We don't know how much he's done. Jay Ajayi hasn't done much. He's been banged up. So you're putting Foles in a situation where, he hasn't had a full arsenal to kind of work with here. When do you think Foles knew that he was starting before they announced it? Like, do you think that he has known that I'm going to play this game for some time, or do you think he found out when everybody else did?
I think he's probably had the sense that probably about a week earlier when I think it became pretty evident that Carson wasn't going to be medically cleared to go. Although Doug didn't announce it and didn't want it announced, but I think he's had a little bit of time to get used to it, to adjust to it, and get ready for it. But like you said, the offense really hasn't had time to work together, and they're not going to have Alshon for tomorrow night. Mac Hollins isn't playing either, so it's going to be interesting to see if they can, just flip that switch and be ready to go. When the real season starts.
Right, because my question behind that is if they kind of knew that he was going to play. And the guy, I can understand if everybody was healthy, but if you had a bunch of guys kind of nicked up and banged up, why would you be splitting the reps 50-50 in a scenario where you need to get these guys playing together as much as possible?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, but I think part of it is because they know that Carson's going to be the guy long term, and they don't want him to just come out cold and try to get ready in a week or so. So I've got a feeling. I don't have privy to it because they don't allow us to watch, practice anymore. But I got to think that Foles was probably getting like 80% of the reps, and they probably just throw Carson in there, just for a series zero or play there, just to keep him fresh a little bit, so that he's ready to come right out of the chute when he's finally medically cleared.
This quarterback story and the Wentz timeline question has taken over basically all the reports over the past couple weeks. Besides the quarterback storyline, what are you looking for tomorrow? What particular storyline besides Wentz Foles, or what particular player are you really going to be keeping an eye on tomorrow night?
Boy, that's a tough one. I'm kind of interested to see how Jason Peters plays. When he's healthy, he's one of the best in the league, if not the best. But he's 36 years old now, coming off a torn ACL. hasn't played at all in the preseason. I'm kind of hoping, or if you're an Eagles fan, you got to hope that he's able to hold up, because Big V really didn't show much of anything in the preseason when he had his opportunity. I got to question whether he's going to be ready to go if called upon. So I'm kind of anxious to see how Jason, handles it coming out of the gate without any preparation. I'm also curious to see how they handle the linebacker situation with Nigel Bradham being suspended for the game. Leroy Reynolds, nobody really knows what he can do or what he's about. Apparently, he's going to be getting a lot of playing time along with Nate Gary and Jordan Hicks, and I guess you can throw Kamuju Hill in there into the mix as well. But I think those are the two areas that I'll probably be most focused on: how Jason Peters holds up and how the linebackers are able to fill that void. Because I think Nigel Bradham is a huge part of that defense, and when you don't have him in there, it's going to suffer.
I would agree with that, Dave. I want to go back to the quarterback thing real fast with Wentz.
Sure.
In that, how do you get him? I mean, the starter takes almost all the reps. So how do you work him back in with playing no preseason games and now essentially not getting any of the reps during the week? Like, at what point do you just make that switch over? I mean, now that they've made Foles the starter, is it just a 1 week thing, or do you think this is going to be an elongated thing, like, till they get to a bye week or something?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I originally thought that he would be back next week against Tampa, but the more you read into it, the fact that the doctor who performed the surgery is pretty adamant in the fact that he doesn't think that he's ready to go yet, that they should take even a more conservative approach to it. I don't quite know what the Eagles medical staff is thinking, because, when they're not available. Doug pretty much keeps everybody in the dark, so I don't know if he's coming back next week, he's coming back 3 weeks from now or whatever, but I think they do have to, they have to keep working him in the way they're doing it now, but as soon as he's medically clear, they gotta make sure that, he gets all the reps so that he's, in sync with everybody. I mean, this happened in his rookie year, too. He broke his rib in the first preseason game against Tampa. Didn't play the entire preseason yet. He was ready to go when the season started. So it's not like he hasn't been through this before.
Yeah, because it would seem like, okay, let's say he's ready to play. Now, I guess if Foles got you through this game, you do have a 10-day window that he could start doing stuff. So week 2 would actually seemingly be like a good built-in stop. But does it seem that that's aggressive at this point with the way this is gone?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I've written before that I thought that Foles should start the opener, and you have that 10-day window for Carson to get stronger. But I'm starting to wonder if they think he's going to be ready even then. Like I mentioned, the doctor seemed to be really, I don't want to say worried, but he seemed to be pretty concerned about the fact that, that he might even be close to playing. I mean, there was that 9 to 12 month window, and judging by his comments, I think he's hoping that the Eagles are going to err on the side of caution here and maybe hold him out for another couple games. But I don't really know what's going on, to be honest with you.
What do you think the identity of this team is tomorrow night specifically, with Alshon Jeffrey out, with Nick Foles getting the nod? What type of team should we be expecting to watch, specifically on the offensive end, with all the injuries and question marks surrounding them?
Well, you got to think that they've always been a kind of a pick your poison kind of offense, where you really can't center on one guy. You can't really try to shut down one guy because everybody else is going to step up. Without Alshon out there, I would assume that Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert are going to play even bigger roles in the passing game. I would think Darren Sproles might be used more as a receiver. I think they're going to try and spread Atlanta out a little bit and use that versatility. Send Mike Wallace deep because he's supposed to be the deep threat. Sheldon Gibson might get more of an opportunity than we were expecting too. So. I think I would hope they're going to be more of a balanced offense, like Jay Ajayi and Corey Clement, let them, do their thing, and then let Nick pick his opportunities and take advantage of when they come.
Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City, at Press AC Weinberg on Twitter. His column today, you're basically saying your gut instinct says Peterson's playing, making the right move here, and hopefully it's not the bowl of chili he ate last night, but. How do you think? Yes, I read the article.
That went down okay, so I'm all right.
How do you? feel that, Peterson the last couple of days, he seems like he's been a little cranky, a little, different than normal. Now, he kind of explained it that he just wasn't happy that Wentz kind of got the news before he had a chance to talk to him. But overall, now that he's a Super Bowl winning coach, how do you think Doug has come off entering this season?
Well, up until last week, I thought he handled himself pretty well. The little tantrum that he threw kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. That's the side of Doug that I really am not used to seeing. I mean, I kind of go back with him all the way back to 1999 when he was the starter when they were grooming Donovan to take over the job. So, I've been around him quite a bit. He's always struck me as a pretty, I don't want to say mild-mannered, but a grounded, someone who doesn't really read too much into things, doesn't get too high or too low. But that was definitely a surprising moment for him to lose his temper like that over something that really was meaningless in my eyes. I mean, it was Ian Rappaport who broke the news. He works for the league. He wasn't there when he lumped all of us in together to criticize us. So the whole thing was just pointless to me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know that you look at Doug, and he's come a long way from where he took this team over, and a lot of people have a lot of belief and trust in him. But towards the end there, it's almost like, and look, this isn't a criticism of him. It was almost like he's ready for this season just to get, like, he's moved on past everything, and he just wants it all to start so he can get past everything of what happened last. Like, you get to that moment where you're like, okay, it's like a celebrity who just can't stand the people still coming up to him anymore, and they're just like, okay, I've had it. I'm ready to just go into hiding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. But he also has to understand that Wentz's house is the number one thing on everybody's mind, media, fans, everybody. So the question has to be asked. You may not like answering it every day, but until he's finally ready to go, it's going to be something that's going to come up, and I guess you just have to deal with it. I mean, I understand getting frustrated having to answer day after day after day, but until there's an answer that has Wentz coming back to take over as quarterback, he just has something he's just going to have to deal with, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to win. You guys ask the question, you get yelled at for asking the same question 30 times. If you don't ask the question, you look like an idiot for not bringing it up. I mean, can you imagine,
Correct.
Dave, if this whole offseason went and not one of you guys asked one question about the health of Carson Wentz? I mean, you'd look like a bunch of fools.
Yeah, we were definitely in a no-win situation here, like you said. We have to ask it, and if we don't, then we seem like idiots. So. But then when we do ask it, we're accused of badgering the guy. Don't you have anything else to talk about? Well, really, we don't. I mean, everybody knows the quarterback is what drives the team. And, when your starting quarterback is coming back from a serious knee injury, he's supposed to be the face of your franchise. And, that's something that people want to know about.
Dave Weinberg, Press of Atlantic City. Eagles, Falcons tomorrow night, 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 6. Dave, what about the running back spot for you? Blunt's out. He was a very key guy at times. I mean, he wasn't always the leading rusher. He wasn't always the breakaway guy. But there were tons of times where he was rumbling down the field because he broke through a tackle, knocked through a guy. Do they have the same punch in their running game this year?
Maybe on the field they can replace him, but he's going to be tougher to replace in the locker room than what people think. I mean, he didn't have that reputation coming into Philly. He was known as kind of a malcontent, but over the course of last season, he really emerged as a leader of that locker room as a group and the entire locker room. Actually, it was just his way of going about things. The fact that he had already won 2 Super Bowls, people respected him. The way he handled the situation with Kansas City against Kansas City and not really playing, everybody expected him to fly off the handle, but he didn't. And as the season progressed, he became more and more valuable, and he really became valuable in the Super Bowl, as everybody remembers. So, on the field, I think it's going to be a little bit easier. If you have Jay Ajayi for a full season now, assuming that his knee's going to hold up, which seems to be a little bit of a concern. But they've kind of gone to pretty great lengths to conserve him and hope that they'll be able to hold up for the entire regular season. You're going to see Corey Clement even have a bigger role, I guess. And Wendell Smallwood, everybody forgotten about him because he had struggled with injuries last year. People didn't even expect him to make the team this year. But I think you're going to see a little bit of a role with him. And, of course, Darren Sproles coming back. He's going to add that extra dimension as a receiver and as a blocker also.
Yeah, and, one area that they went for it a lot on fourth down. Riverboat Doug, and right. A lot of those fourth downs that they converted, Dave, was handed the ball to Blunt. I'm really interested to see how they kind of divvy up the carries. So let me ask you about Sproles. I mean, is he going to be a guy that you're going to see carry the ball a lot? Is he just going to be more used in a receiving, out of the backfield role? Because they were using him. I find that last year, Dave, I find that last year, him getting hurt, I don't want to say it was a blessing, but it almost changed a lot of things. They were kind of featuring him as the back before he ended up getting hurt, and it was almost like they had to change their running plan when he went out.
Yeah, I mean, Ajayi wasn't on the team back then. That's the reason they got him, I guess, was after Darren went out, and it forced them to kind of explore exactly what Corey Clement's potential was, and they found out that he was, a guy that you can really count on to deliver a big play when you need it. And I think Darren's role is going to be a little bit smaller this year. I don't think he's going to be the guy. I think Ajayi is the guy that they're looking to be the every down back. The guy can run it between the tackles and move the chains. Clement will be used more as a receiver and a runner, I guess. And Darren definitely as more of a receiver type, I would think. I mean, he's not getting any younger. He's coming off that serious knee injury. So I think they're probably going to use him in that role, plus as a punt returner.
In your opinion, how does Wallace change from what Torrey Smith brought to the table?
I don't know. I haven't seen him do anything yet. I keep watching and waiting for him to make that big catch. I mean, he made one in like a public practice at the link, I think. But I haven't really seen what he can do. I don't know if it's because Jug has kept the game plans for the preseason game so basic. He's focused on other guys, but yeah, I'm still waiting to see what he is. Everybody's considered him an upgrade over Torrey Smith, but I've yet to see it. And that's another thing that I'm kind of curious about to see tomorrow night is whether Michael Wallace plays a bigger role in the offense than he has been.
Yeah, I'm interested to see that too because Smith was, I don't want to say a disappointment, but I don't know that he brought numerically anyway a whole heck of a lot to the table.
No,
and you would probably be able to quantify more what he brought inside the locker room. And if Wallace is going to, put more numbers up than maybe Smith did, that's going to be an interesting storyline, I think, this year if they've added a legitimate weapon.
Right, and but I wouldn't be surprised to see if Shelton Gibson maybe assumes that role as it goes on. I mean, he was down and out for his rookie year, and but he was one of the big surprises at training camp, and his speed might be even more. He might be even a more dynamic player than Mike Wallace is. So, if he can prove himself, be consistent, especially in the early half of the year, I think you might see him emerge as a deep threat that they want.
Yeah, Dave, on the defensive side, you mentioned Bradham, but defensive line seems deeper. Corners, you got Sidney Jones replacing Patrick Robinson. Maybe more talent, but that should be interesting to see if he handles that slot role. Mm-hmm. The safeties are the same. Is this defense, in your mind, a better defense than the team that won the Super Bowl?
I don't know how you can say that. I don't know. They gave up a lot of points in the Super Bowl, but by and large, through the season and the playoffs, they were a pretty stingy unit. I don't think they lost like a whole lot. Jordan Hicks not being out there was a loss, but they seem to compensate for that okay. I guess on paper they're probably at least as good. They seem to have more depth up front, even though Tim Jernigan's not out there. But you have Nagata, replacing him just for the time being anyway. Outside, it seems like they're stacked with the four-man rotation, adding Michael Bennett to it. I mean, you lost Vinny Curry, but I think Bennett's probably a better player. So, yeah, I guess on paper, but like you just mentioned, and Patrick Robinson was, he was a valuable part of that secondary last year. Led the team in interceptions. I mean, he owned that slot corner role, and I know Sidney's got a world of ability and potential, but there's something different about playing inside. Not everybody can do it. And I'm interested to see if he's able to handle that.
Dave, what do you think about how Schwartz is going to be rotating the defensive line? Because, like Mike just mentioned, it's a really deep position, and I'm curious to see how much of Chris Long we're going to see, when we're going to see him. Bennett, what situations is he going to get put into? So talk about how you think Schwartz is going to rotate all those guys he has at the D-line spot.
Well, he seems to always find a way to get everybody their snaps. Brandon Graham coming back from off-season ankle surgery, so I don't know if he's going to play as much, at least in the beginning of the year, although he's pretty much, their go-to guy when you really need it. But, yeah, I would think him and Long and Bennett and Derek Barnett especially, he's going to find a way. It seems like he always does. He finds a way to get everybody their snaps. So, it's a good problem to have. You have, 4 guys who are extremely talented. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to find a way to get everybody on the field. And those guys don't seem to have any ego where, they're going to complain if they don't get so many snaps or whatever. They seem to get along pretty well as a group, and that's a big advantage, I think.
Dave Weinberg, Press of Atlantic City here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, Eagles and the Falcons. Tomorrow night, you got Nick Foles. You've got a different team last year seemingly behind them. Is tomorrow night, though, a tough way to start the season with this Falcons team that was literally fingertips from beating you in your own building?
Yeah, it is. Especially Thursday night, and the lights are on, the pressure's on. Everybody's going to, be really hyped when they see that flag unfurled and raised to the top of the flagpole. And but Atlanta's no joke. They're a legitimate contender to win the NFC this year, I think, along with probably half dozen other teams, including the Eagles. So, there really are there probably was no easy way to open this season up, but to have the entire country watching, to have so many question marks, to have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones coming back at you with those running backs, that's a really tough challenge.
Dave, we'll ask you because the game tomorrow night. This team here. Before we get your prediction on the game, you mentioned it. Philly, Minnesota, New Orleans, the Rams, the Packers, the Falcons. There's a couple teams that people like this year, like San Francisco. Detroit's probably better. But what I want to ask you is, there's all teams that we mentioned that are probably all playoff, many Super Bowl contenders. But in your view, what about the NFC East? Is there a team in the NFC East that concerns you?
Not really, no. The Giants are supposed to be better, and I think getting Saquon Barkley is a big advantage because it's going to take some of the pressure off of Eli. Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott are both back, so that'll make Dallas a fringe contender. But to be honest with you, I don't think there's anybody that can legitimately challenge the Eagles for the division title. I would be very surprised if they don't at least win that.
Wow. All right, Dave, so going off what we all said here with the interview, I want to ask you this. What's your headline going to look like Friday morning in the Atlantic City Press for the Eagles?
Eagles open with a loss.
Oh, Dave, say it ain't so.
Well, you know what happened the last time you on this show picked against the Eagles.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm going with the Falcons. I do think the Eagles are going to have a great year. I think they're going to win 10 or 11 games. But just like I said, they just have to There's been so much uncertainty, so much instability during the preseason and training camp. I just have a feeling that Atlanta's going to pull it out.
All right, Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City here. He'll be joining us again weekly on these Weinberg Wednesdays here on the Sports Bash Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.